Hello, this is EDM 310 Project 9, and this is Group 10. And my name is Mia Britton.
I'm Sabrina Stapleton.
I'm Lacey Roach.
And I'm Paige Odom. We're going to be talking about Mark Prensky's book, Teaching Digital Natives. We were assigned topic 5.
Okay, and before we research topic 5, we basically define what pedagogy is. And pedagogy is the method and the practice of teaching, especially like as an academic subject or a theoretical concept. And so basically, Mr. Princey in his book, the pedagogy that he really focused on was partnering. And partnering, basically, it can be defined in many different ways and different things. But he basically says that it's letting students focus on the part of the learning process that they can do best. And also letting teachers focus on the part of the learning process that they can do best. And so letting the students do what they can do best, it means giving the students primary responsibility of taking charge of their learning, basically. And he gave several ways that students can do this and how teachers can help implement this. And I'm just going to talk about a few ways that the students can do this. And that's just finding and following their passions, what they love most about learning, and also using whatever technology is available, like iPads, MacBooks, things of that nature to help their learning process run smoothly. And this will help out with their passions. And he also said that researching and finding information will help the students, learn what's best for them and incorporate this knowledge. And answering questions and sharing thoughts and opinions with one another and also their teachers will also help out. And another thing that he brought that I thought was interesting was, practicing. I know in EPY 351 we talk about modeling behavior. That's the psychology course that education majors are required to take. And basically it's talking about modeling behavior. And I felt like that practicing is sort of like the modeling. Like, say for instance, you're teaching a lesson in history about lawyers. You probably will have the children model the behavior of a lawyer or act out, how a lawyer will act. And he also said that you can do this through games. And another way is creating presentations either in text or multimedia. And the multimedia that they can use are iMovie, PowerPoint, things of that nature. So those were some of the things that he incorporated that students learn, and they use partnering. And I'm going to let Sabrina talk about how teachers can do this best.
He says that letting the teachers do what they can do best means giving teachers primary responsibility for creating and asking the right questions, giving students guidance, putting material in context, explaining one-on-one, and creating rigor, and ensuring quality, which is what most teachers should be doing anyways. But Prensky says that partnering is the very opposite of teaching by telling, which is how classes are working nowadays. But in partnering, he says the teacher's goal is to not tell the kids at all, but rather the teacher needs to only give students questions to be answered in certain cases, and the tools and a place to start, which is a lot like project-based learning. But it's just like project-based learning, but Prensky says that the teacher doesn't tell, she asks, that she suggests the topics and the tools, and has the kids take notes and find out, and then research and create the outputs from what the suggested topics and tools were. Says the teacher learns about technology from the students, but the students learn about quality and rigor from the teacher. And the teacher evaluates students' output for rigor and quality and supplies context where the students refine and improve the output by adding the rigor, context, and quality. And Prensky also says that the best way to assess in partnering is to give the students necessary and helpful feedback, which is formative, to encourage them to do better, to provide them with student feedback so they have their peer reviews, Include evaluations from a global audience, which gives them a real world assessment from people outside of their classrooms and schools, and to get them to understand their own progress by doing self evaluations, which Prinsky says is probably one of the most effective ways because it teaches them later on in life how to self evaluate themselves and how they can better themselves in their careers. Also, he says to allow them to use their own tools, which is basically what we're doing for the 21st century. But he means their computers, their phones, their calculators, everything they have it there that's available. But to appease everyone else, he says to use the standardized tests too. Another question in topic 5 was what has to be done to implement partnering in the classroom? And Lacey's going to tell us about that.
Okay. To begin implementing partnering in the classroom, you have to change the way that you view your students. Typically, students are viewed as the teacher is viewed as an expert with all the skills and information, and the students are viewed as less capable receivers. We have to change that into being partners with the teacher with a different but equal set of skills.
I mean, we already know how to detach audio. It's a matter of detaching the audio and keeping it.
As a teacher in the partnering pedagogy, it is your job to promote learning in a way that is meaningful and challenging to your students. And it's the student's job to accept the challenges and to provide good work. This will require more hands-on doing, more independent thinking, and more creating on the parts of the student. One type of partnering is just basic partnering. It's where you give the students a guiding question and let them work on their own, individually or in a group. Basic partnering is essentially just giving a guiding question for the students and have them either prepare a presentation or just do research on it, and you give them a time frame to complete the activity. You should keep in mind that you need to provide variety. One way you can do this is to have other students or even adults from different locations, like maybe through a blog or through a discussion forum online, have that as an aspect of the project. Or you can just have students use different methods to do their projects. Instead of doing a PowerPoint all the time, you can have them do an iMovie presentation. And you have to approach topics through whole class games or simulations. So instead of having the class break up into groups all the time, have like maybe a class discussion one day or a game based on a topic. That way the information will stick with the students more. You can have the students design solutions to real world problems. You can set up a simulation and see who comes up with the best one in the class, and that could be a way to integrate it into the whole class aspect. Another part is sharing results. Students should share their findings with the class and the teacher using methods and tools of their own choosing, maybe text, audio, video, animations, multimedia, or even game designs. And this it helps the students evaluate their own performance and see what they need to improve on.
So it's a lot like how we put work together in EDM.
Yeah, basically, it's a lot like EDM.
Okay. Why does Prinsky believe that partnering is more effective than the testing and telling? With testing and telling, the kids really aren't listening in class anymore, and they're just not engaged because of all the technology with the iPads and the iPods, things like that. So with partnering, it is great because you can put a lot of ideas together and you can come up with better ideas. And even as, a student in college, I find it more effective to be in a group so we can put all our ideas together and really come up with something better than I could probably ever thought of myself. Prinsky also states in his book that students in today's world, they do not want to be lectured. They want to be respected, trusted, and they want their values and opinions, to count. Um, they they want to, create things by using tools in today's, the world today. They want to use iMovie, things like that, instead of just the same PowerPoint, because that can get old very quick. They want to make decisions, but also share control. So one's not overpowering the other, because that does sometimes tend to happen when you work in a group. They, they want to educate, but they want it to be relevant.
But the big question in topic 5 is, do you agree with Prinsky's assessment of the effectiveness of his new pedagogy, which is partnering? And I personally do agree with that, because kids these days are not engaged when you are sitting there and lecturing at them. But instead, when you put them in a group and you give them something that they have to work on, and they're putting their own efforts in and their own research, they feel like they're getting more out of it, which I think is exactly what Prinsky's saying.
I believe it too. Like I said earlier, this project, it's much easier than doing projects by myself, because I have other people to maybe educate me in things that I didn't know about, and we can put our ideas together. And that's really good for kids, because some kids, they're not confident. Maybe they're scared to express, their feelings, things like that, where with this, everybody's scared, so they can just do it together, and maybe that'll give them a little bit more confidence to say what they need to say.
I also agree with Pinsky on this being a better pedagogy. I personally enjoy EDM 310 more than any of my other classes. I feel like it's easier because it keeps me more engaged. I actually have a finished product that I can look at and be proud of. And it makes me feel like my time's not being wasted.
Yeah, and it's also because you're not having to sit down and read through a book, because that always, to me, if I don't like what I'm reading, I'm not going to read it, and I'm not going to retain it. But with EDM, which is the same way that Prinsky wants with partnering, you actually learn.
Yeah, I actually learned how to do something. It's not something that I'm going to forget after I leave the class. I could use this later on in teaching.
Right, and I'm really bad about maybe memorizing things and losing it. Well, with this, I actually have to learn how to do it and be kind of successful at it to get a decent grade. Things like that. Where this EDM, you cannot just memorize how to do something. You actually have to learn how to do it,
because you have to keep using it.
right. And with this, you'll use it in everyday life, whereas things you don't have to. If you're memorizing it, you're going to forget it, so you're not going to use it. You're going to go another route.
And that's kind of what Prinsky's saying, because he wants you to, what he thinks is best is like the self-evaluation, because we don't actually use that in elementary schools. And that's a way to get them to start evaluating what they need to get better on themselves, instead of waiting on us to tell them what they need to get better at.
Right. And that's same with maybe group work, that you can evaluate each other, but it doesn't have to be a rude or harsh comment. It's you're helping them, but you're also evaluating them at the same time.
And in partnering, the teacher gives the student a lot more responsibility.
And power, I think.
I feel like it's a more meaningful learning experience. Like the students actually take something from it. They're not just memorizing the information, they're making connections to the real world.
And that's our Group 10 Project 9 discussion on topic 5.